Okay. All right. So welcome into Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole or Sharon or Cole, whatever you want to refer to me as. No big deal. I've been called everything under the sun: rat, pig, horse, cow, dog, specifically very often. Good girl, no barking. And this is related to something that started in 2011. And in a good way, I don't care. So I am here on day 156 of my one video each day, 365-day video campaign raising money for a life lost or the ability to live a normal life lost because of extreme harassment and this terroristic, torturous thing that began and kicked off in a very obvious and big way in 2011, but not big enough to be able to say seek justice for it or find restitution, unless there are private investors out there, which I'm always looking for, who would be willing to either pay me a salary with all the vacation time. In fact, I would love to take maternity leave since I was denied the ability to actually have a child because of this. So I want to be afforded that in addition to all the vacations that I never got, all the federal holidays, and so forth and so on, since I've had to work on all of those days without ever having a day off or the ability to take a vacation. Instead, I've been terrorized. And I'm coming here after not having been able to do videos for a couple days. I didn't feel very well, and I had some overnights. And between the two, I sort of took a break from doing daily videos. So in addition to a toothache and headache, I had sort of this, I think it's hormonal. I'm actually going through menopause. I'm 52 years old. It started when I was about 50. At the end of 2019, menopause started to kick in. I had irregular cycles, as they would say. And then officially by the end of 2020, I was officially in the, I guess you could say, liberated land of not having to put out money for necessary items that women have to put out on a monthly basis. So in a way, I'm celebrating, but there are other side effects, and I didn't feel so good. And I wondered if it was a hormonal situation of like a stinging sensation, hard to explain, but it's coupled with hot flashes and stuff like that. So anyway, with that said, it's day 156. I'm back on here. And as usual, I kind of start with the story that officially kicked off whatever this bizarre experience has been. It is like sort of being terrorized and tortured and put on a track, if you will. I don't really know what to call it. It's in the realm of, do I contact investigators of like Area 51, that sort of like weird CIA / kind of UFO, although I don't have any UFO experiences, but I have experienced things that are inexplicable. Other things are explicable, other things aren't. So I don't know what to do with it. Nobody does, and a lot of people don't want to touch it because one of the words that's used to describe it would be gang stalking. But here we go. On the fourth Monday of January 2011, I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment. I was scared, SHITLESS. I 1000% believed that I would be killed that night and that it was the last night of my life. I was trembling and shaking, convulsing so badly because of ruckus and activity that was going on outside. I thought someone broke into the basement of a row home that was converted to apartments. I lived just above the basement, and in the front apartment, the front half, very small, very shoebox-like studio. So there was one way in, one way out because of the way and that was through the front door, and there were bars on the window on top of that. And I would advise anyone renting in a big city, if you can help it, I would say don't rent where there are bars in front of a window. If there had been a fire and say the hallway was on fire, there would be a trap. Like you wouldn't be able to get in or out. So bars on windows, although they seem safe in a big city, if you're the first floor apartment, in a way they can feel a little bit Trappisty. And I'm wondering if there's other solutions, other types of windows or what have you that can be put in that have the ability to be opened so that you can run out if you feel the need to for fire, or if you think you're going to be murdered in your apartment. I was trembling so badly, I couldn't even speak for like a minute or two. I could barely hold the phone. I went totally weak. It turns out when you are terrorized, blood runs cold and you just go limp and shake and shiver and convulse. I finally called my sister. She then convinced me to call police. I finally called them, thought it was being rerouted to the CIA for a special police force to show up, as if they were keeping it sealed off from the normal police. That's the thought that came through my brain. So was it my thought, or did someone send it, as if our brains were like phones that could receive text messages? Because I grew up with people having landline phones. Everything was hooked up to the wall and into the ground and to the telephone poles. Now we have cell phones. And somehow information can transfer, like we can talk to somebody and hitting off a tower or whatever. But isn't that miraculous? But say our heads were a little bit like cell phones, and that someone could actually send a belief or a thought, an action, and it goes and sticks to your brain per se, and you would wonder. Like I did wonder, and the guy who answered at the dispatch center that evening, and it would be like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, had a very falsetto Italian sound. It's hard to explain. Here in Philly, we have people with a very specific dialect. And sometimes these people, to me, can sound fakish. It's hard to explain because it's like, I feel like the voice needs to be clear, just cleared out. It's really hard to explain. This is something that I've noticed, and it can, some Italians, sorry, Italians, but sometimes there could be a sociopathy or a psychopathy associated with Italian people. And I know that's a stereotype, but there's some truth in stereotype. And in a way, this person sounded too excited. So that bothered me. But anyway, the police, some form of police came out. They kind of lightly, they kind of kicked around as if they were on the Andy Griffith show. They didn't come in to check the apartment. I didn't know what else to do because I was shaking and trembling. I was on the steps, like totally trembling, but they didn't do much else other than to say, well, looks like the coast is clear. There's a van up here. It's probably a UPenn shuttle van. And there was a van that was in front of my window. And I thought it was creepy and weird because the guy kept looking in and he had this headset on. And it wasn't a passenger van. I think it was a plain white van with just the front windows. So anyway, they would wander off. I would eventually call some friends that I knew around the corner. And then if that weren't enough, the games commenced after that. And everyone started acting bizarrely. Even my friends who lived kind of like zigzag around the corner on Dorrance Street. And the next day I would try to reach my mom, who lived with my aunt, and got we're sorry, the phone number you're trying to reach has been disconnected. So that plays into the horror and the terrorization. If I had tried to call them in the middle of the night and got that would have like laid it on really thick that evening. It was still bad enough the next day. I even dragged my sister up here from Delaware, which I would never do. But I basically demanded that she come up and walk dogs with me. I was walking dogs at the time. It was supposed to be a temporary situation because I had planned to move to the Pacific Northwest. I even signed up for a run out there. I was a runner, and I did like little half marathons and 5Ks here and there. And I signed up for a thing of all things. It was called Run Like Hell in Portland, Oregon. Because I thought of, I was on the Portlandia track just like every other lady out there. Technically it's considered a friendly LGBT community, and a lot of women like to move, or they used to, out to Portlandia where they keep it weird and all that other stuff. But none of that would come to fruition in terms of being able to move there because I was scared so badly. It was like someone stuck their hand in and said, Sharon's not going this way. Whoop, she's going that way. It's a little bit like that, but I was terrorized the whole time. So the games commenced, all kinds of bizarre activity kicked up. It was like a vortex of hell, if you will. And I don't even know what to say about how weird things got, how many messages came through my brain. There was one day I'm like rushing from one dog walk to another in fear the whole time. We also had blizzards and snow that year. We kept getting socked with snowstorms. Historic because snow amounts, blizzards, and constant snow that lasted all the way up until the latest day that spring could begin. And they said it was the biggest blizzard we'd had since 1941. It was in the newspaper. I saved the newspaper. For a while, I'd have to find it again because I had to move and downsize so much that I'm worried that it got lost in the shuffle somewhere. But it said something like, came in a flash but won't end that way. And of course, flash mobs were big that year. And we had kids running down South Street, looting stores, and flash mobs were an issue. They tried to iron out flash mobs by having like protesters do like cutesy flash mobs, and people will do like performance flash mobs. The problem is the cutesy flash mobs could play into another form of mobbing and community harassment and gang stalking, which is what I experienced, people doing uncool, very hurtful, very bizarre things. In fact, I feel like the universe or people up here can add like layers of despair and like very deep levels of pain and hurt to go along with how badly people were behaving here on the streets of Philadelphia. But with that said, I'm going to talk about something that's happened recently that ties into gang stalking. This would be more like street level. It's easy and clear to point at and notice. The stuff I experienced I think it had layers, and I would have to spend like a year trying to explain just one theme that occurred one week and how it was played out through the week and how many people played into it and how much fear was instilled of, oh, we're going to put you in jail. I don't even know how it's done because it's so much innuendo, nuance, and so forth and so on. Little girl barrettes, all kinds of things, trying to make me worry about, looking like some sort of gross, wayward lesbian who would be like pedophilia in nature or what have you. The thing is, I'm an actual victim of people who have been uncool with me. And I sort of grew up in such a way. So predatorial people, and in my case, they happen to be men, but except for one towards who was part of the setup and expressed a romantic interest in me before everything got kicked off. Technically, she gets to fit into the predatorial category at this point, and she's even a therapist. But anyway, or claims to be. But in general, while growing up, I was a certain type of person, and predatorial guys can spot someone like me. And there are a lot of people like me out there. It would be like a radar. So technically, I had to go to therapy to undo all that. It's hard to explain. There are real victims out there. They actually have a hard time functioning in life like normal people. And predatorial, in my case, men, for the most part, can really oppress women. And it's hard to explain how the chemistry in the brain works, but their actions can actually take down the functioning of their victims. And victims don't know how to operate like normal people. It would be like superficial. They would keep trying to go through the motions, but there's always something deep down in there that's not quite right. Something's not quite right. I will say this, in a way, the terrorization wound up being a clearing on some level, even though I was terrorized, and still get threatened on a regular basis of people wishing that people like me, good people who are nice people and kind people who actually wants everybody to feel uplifted in life. For some reason, I'm still getting the harassment, or I'm seeing the harassment on the streets of, certain people wanting other people to suffer in jail or something. Leads me to this thing that happened yesterday. I had to run out to get some shorts that I would wear to bed. Like, I was wearing sweatpants shorts for many years, and they finally ripped too much and were worn out. So I ran to Target to see if they had any, and they did. And they had these gray shorts for like $8, and this is what I would sleep in at night. Paid for them and everything. What I didn't notice, because I quickly went through self-checkout, was this red tag was on the shorts. And I'm wondering if Target is playing into a form of gang stalking that might be more modernized. So of course, if you go through, it should set off the alarm, which I think it did, but the alarm was so light, and everyone knew that I went through self-checkout. So it's one of those things where like, just go or whatever. There were security guards there, and they didn't even pay attention. And I wound up walking into a parking garage that's attached to Target, because then I was going to go to Sprouts because I really wanted to get the dark chocolate almond butter that I was craving so badly. And it felt comforting to get that. So as I'm walking through the garage, I was trying to decide if I would take the stairs or walk down. Finally decided to take the stairs because I was on like another layer. I go down a flight or two of stairs, and I'm about to head to Sprouts. I couldn't figure out which way to get out of the garage. It was a little confusing. I started to walk one way. Then I realized, no, I'm supposed to go up here. And just on time, there was an Allied Universal security guard walking through. And in a way, and I don't know if this person intended it or not, this woman, but in a way, because she wound up in front of me heading towards Sprouts, it can start to feel like, oh, you're being escorted by a prison ward or something like that. There is that feeling that comes through. We're going to escort you into Sprouts. So then I look for what I want. I go straight to the almond butter. And I knew I don't want to look at anything else because I don't want to pay for any more food. I just wanted the almond butter. So I get in line, and all of a sudden the Allied person gets in line before me, before self-checkout. And I realized once again, security guards could put off that feeling of, if you are behind them, it's like they're the leader, they're in charge, they are escorting you through. It could come across that way. Philadelphia is very prison oriented, even though it's a liberal city. I thought for a second, then I decided, you know what, I'm going to jump out of line really quick, and I might get some yogurt while I'm here, and I'll let other people. There's a lot of stuff that goes on at Sprouts, by the way. It doesn't go unnoticed. I try to hit up Sprouts during certain times to avoid a lot of activity, but you can't go into Sprouts without feeling raped. That's all I have to say. Everybody's on the lookout at Sprouts. Sprouts is technically a natural food store, so you can find organic foods there. It would be like a cheaper form. It's like between Trader Joe's and Whole Foods in a way. And I love their almond butter, but I don't love shopping there because it's become a mecca for a more street level form of gang stalking. I'm kind of used to a gang stalking that's up here in, how can we make Sharon seem like a schizophrenic? You know, it's hard to explain because all kinds of code words, buzzwords, all kinds of things can be done. And you can even watch, like I haven't watched TV in years. I think I was prepped to make sure I didn't get sucked into how sophisticated gang stalking can get. But if you were to watch the movie called The Game, which came out in the late 90s with Sean Penn and Michael Douglas winds up signing up for a life-altering experience. He signed up for it. I never signed up for anything. But there are a lot of things in that movie I totally identify with. I'm like, they did that. So at one point, I didn't experience this as in a dramatic way as he did in the character Michael Douglas. But at some point, he's watching the news on the first day that everything would kick off. And the anchor actually turned and said the character's name. I'll just say it was Michael. So, Michael, when are you going to get a life? And then he goes back to the news. And it's like, how did they do that? How did they do that? You know, it's in that realm, some of the stuff I experienced. I know I've listened to NPR episodes and other things on the radio, and I would get messages that would imply something. And I even checked because there was a message that came through, like an ad from Wistar Institute. And it made me think of someone who used to work for Wistar. And I penned up, and what the message I got was, Sohelia no longer works at Wistar. Somehow that came through on the ad. I actually texted Sohelia. And sure enough, she had quit Wistar. And she's like, no, I don't work there any longer. Now I'm doing like a fundraising type thing from home. So anyway, there's more to that. But I just wanted to say that I'm wondering if these little stupid tags on an $8 for these shorts, does an $8 pair of shorts need a security tag? You know, anything over like 20 seems reasonable. Is there something to this? How many people, and I looked up online to see how you could remove this at home, because I know it can be done. Things like this seem to have happened before, and I found tons of videos on how to remove this little tag. And everybody shows that they're like, I have the receipt, But anyway, I'm wondering if it's a new form of harassment. Does an $8 cheap pair of shorts need tags at Target? Where do they draw the line on what, and there's self-checkout in these stores in the city, big time. In fact, more self-checkout than actual cashiered registers. So most people go through self-checkout. And because it's small enough, the hanger can kind of hide it. I think I saw red out of the corner of my eye, but I thought it was like just a regular price tag type thing. So anyway, in addition, one other thing that can happen is that sometimes I'll see shortened words like through text, or email would be a better one, where you just see the subject line of the email or like part of the message in your email. Or it happened here when I set up this YouTube. The message I got, because I use the word like donations in the middle of the title of these videos, before I turn on the video, the title will be like edited down into this little frame before you hit like go live, the button that says go live. So it said one video each day, 365 days, DON ... So I got Don. Don happens to be the name of a client of mine I've had recently for overnights. Then ... and then a box that says edit. So it could be read, if you're semi-trained or if the message is put through to read abbreviated messages, if you will, or abbreviated titles and so forth and so on. What I saw was Don edit. This brought up an old thing that happened in the past. I don't feel it as strongly these days because something's changed, but in the past, I would start panicking. The message to me would be that Don has to edit say the times I went in and out of the house. So the house that I did overnights for has an alarm system. So it is recorded and logged how many times the doors opened and closed. Like somewhere there's a log of activity. So in a way, you kind of feel watched a little bit as someone who does overnights. It's like, you have so many things you have to do, dog walks or whatever, and it's like you're trying to hustle and not neglect or feel or want anyone to believe you're neglecting your time spent, walking dogs for an overnight. But so the times would be logged every time you go in and out of the house, and it's a ring system, so there is a camera involved. In the past, I don't think it now, but I know that it would come up this way in the past. In the past, I would worry that they would actually edit the login activity and the camera feed at the house in case they should ever try to piece together and orchestrate some awful thing that could either put me in harm's way or get me in trouble, per se. So it would be like O.J. Simpson and Caitlin, or whatever his name was, the guest house guy. What if they could edit a lot of things in midair so that you can't figure out what actually happened to the woman who was killed at the O.J. Simpson residence? You see what I mean? And they wind up in Supreme Court. And in fact, there was a Bronco, and I think O.J. Simpson, O.J. came up because 2 doors down, there are residents of a house, and the guy who called out from the balcony of his house, like, hey, I think I met your son-in-law. For a second, he thought I was the woman who lived there, but he reminded me of O.J. Simpson. He had a similar look, similar size, everything. And this would be like, I guess, 753. It would be like 2101-ish or so. Cypress and Delancey. The house stretches from Delancey back to Cypress, and the back, like the garage would be on Cypress and the back of the house. So 2101 or 2103, it's in that vicinity. In addition, there was a yellow Bronco and a red Mustang on Delancey. So it would be like ketchup and mustard. That's often something that comes up a lot. But as I recall, I think O.J. Simpson drove a Bronco on a high-speed chase. The police were chasing after him in LA ages ago when that case came out. So all of that played into it. And I'm wondering how much could be edited in the air. Like we with little resources can actually do these videos for YouTube. Like I can do this with I have the cheapest laptop you can find. I literally paid like $200 or $299. Did I pay $199 or $299 for this? I have a phone that I've had forever with Lifeline discount. I pay $55 for unlimited data. Although the unlimited data Lifeline program just ended, so I had to figure out what the problem was there. And then it goes up to $65. So, but unlimited data, I can live stream, even though it looks cheap because it has the skinny lens, but still I can live stream even with these few resources, imagine what people can do who are really advanced and have a lot of money and might be capable of things we don't understand, like sending messages like, oh, your call to police isn't going to the police, it's going to be rerouted to a special CIA police department. They'll look like police coming out, but you're being placed into a special situation for whatever reason. Maybe they need to prove gang stalking and they decided to really unleash the dogs big time here in Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is where the Constitution was written. And it would be like people who don't care how much I suffer. They have a job to do. We have a job to do. We have to get here, here, and here. Just use her because she's easier because she's alone. She comes from a family that thinks a certain way and had a certain life growing up, so it's easier to use her, So anyway, and there are people who knew that I would make it through because I'm used to certain things going on. I might have, some people wonder if I've been prepped my whole life because I'm used to being alone and not sort of like expecting other people to really do much or know much and so forth and so on. So I'm used to being shafted and put on the back burner, even if it doesn't look like it, but I'm used to also hustling and working constantly in all kinds of capacities. And that's not to puff myself up. It's just, that's how my life unfolded. I do know that it's really hard for people to work and find jobs because I know that I can't live a normal life because of what happened. So, and I already knew that before because I already knew that I couldn't figure out why people knew how to do this, that, and the other, and I didn't. Like, I couldn't figure out why I struggled so much and had to sort of find work in a certain capacity. So we'll leave it at that. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say today on day 156 of my one video each day, 365 days, seeking a private funder or even someone who's willing to pay me to go around with videos, whether on YouTube or in another format, to sort of show what I know and what I learned based on my experience. In the end, my case is worth over $60 million, and I know it. It was really bad. It doesn't look like it here today. This is a major disguise. I should, because of how bad this was, I should look like people in Kensington, zombied out and keeled over. The damage was so bad that some people would assume that I would have wound up in that condition. So the United States or whoever unleashed this thing, they can hide extreme trauma and abuse behind this. So not to say, and I look super healthy, and part of it is, in a way, military training of eating a certain way. It is incredibly difficult to maintain certain diets. I wouldn't expect most people to be able to do it without someone coming in and controlling your ass really hard. So anyway, that's it. Have a beautiful day. And sorry I couldn't be here for the past couple of days. I just didn't feel well and I needed a break. And that helped me a lot in the long run. Okay, so have a great day and see you later.